Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Blair, also known as Bubbs. Today is Sunday, February 18th, the first weekend without football for the first time in what is going to be a long time as we enter a long off season, especially for the New York Jets. Today, I'm joined by special guest, New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com, Paul Boy Green Esden Jr. Paul, thank you so much for coming on. How's it going, man?
It's going to what do you prefer, Bubbs or Blair? I want to make sure I'm
Uh,
consistent.
Bubbs is good. Bubbs is good.
Okay, well, Bubbs, thanks for having me on the program, man. This is exciting. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, appreciate you coming on. Looking forward to getting into all things New York Jets. Never a dull moment with this team, as we all know. Wanted just to get your to start things off here before we get into some of the offense stuff, defense, and team needs, of course. Your overall takeaways from what was a tumultuous 2023 season, and then your expectations and thoughts going into what is another huge 2024 offseason for this franchise.
Yeah, I mean, when you get a player of Aaron Rodgers' caliber had been
Yeah.
obviously speculated for months. So there was a lot of build up to that. I was at the Jets facilities for their Twitter documentary series that they brought us in for, and that was still when the quarterback question was up for debate. We recorded that at the end of February. And again, we didn't know about Aaron Rodgers ultimately to the draft week. So that was late April. That was the week of the draft. And yeah, they asked me what quarterback do I want for the Jets. I said, "There's no question. It is freaking Aaron Rodgers, baby." So that's what I wanted. I want the best possible guy. I thought he provided the best ceiling and the best chance to win. Because to me, sure, if you get, Derek Carr or whoever the hell, Jimmy Garoppolo, or whoever the hell was in conversation, there was a chance to end the playoff drought. But to me, I have my eyes set higher just because our standard has been really poor because we haven't been to the playoffs in all these years. I didn't just want someone to break the playoff drought or we pop the bubbly. I want to win a championship. The Jets haven't done that in a long time. So that was my expectation. When you get a quarterback like Aaron freaking Rodgers, I was thinking Super Bowl. That was on my mind. Aaron Rodgers is playing the game to get another Super Bowl ring. He's not just playing to dance around and prance around. So for me, expectations were Super Bowl. And of course, 4 snaps into the season, it's a sense of disbelief. I was not there live. There was a chance I potentially could have been, but ended up was at home with the family. And I was just sitting there. I just remember the Monday Night Football game, the pregame intros I was seeing on social media. I was bought in, the Hard Knocks. Like, there's just so much hype. The One Jets drive, there was so much hype, so much buildup. And I was just, on the edge there, the precipice of like, okay, we're finally going to have a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be great. And then, of course, the injury happens. And then we have the amazing walk-off winner from X. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I am like so all over the place. And then once we find out the worst, right, that he's out for the season, I convinced myself that we had a Kurt Warner situation. That we were going to rally around Zach Wilson, and somehow he must have picked up by osmosis some info from Aaron Rodgers where at least he could keep the ship afloat. And, that went through the bye week, right? They're 3-3. All of a sudden, you're like, wait a second. Hey, now anything could happen. Of course, everything claps on out. But to me, I think people are too down on the Jets in the offseason after what happened. What happened sucks. And you get expectations this high, and you ended up 7-10, which is not what anyone wanted, of course. But I think people are too low on the Jets heading into the offseason, and they're just too affected emotionally by the prisoner of the moment of what happened this past season. I am once again rallying for Super Bowl. Now, there's a lot of pieces that have to happen for agency draft and things of that nature. But with Aaron Rodgers and that freaking defense we saw last year, you patch up the offensive line, you get some wide receiver help, and there's some other things as well. A veteran running back I'd like on the cheap, maybe another tight end in the room because I think Uzama's going to get cut. But, I think this team could still accomplish all of their hopes and dreams of last year in this upcoming season. So I'm stoked. Again, I think the overall temperature of the fan base is very low, but not me. I still have Super Bowl aspirations for 2024.
Yeah, hopefully they could turn things around. And it's funny, as someone that was in the building that night, I was, paid all this money, 4 snaps in, disbelief. You could hear a pin drop. And then, of course, here I am paying all this money to watch Zach Wilson. Obviously, Gibson goes on, wins the game, and it was a memorable night. But you knew walking out of there that most likely the season was over. And unfortunately, they stayed afloat for a little bit, but the quarterback play just wasn't sustainable and very unfortunate. You mentioned the Super Bowl aspirations, and then you obviously talked about, people being down on this team. We've heard multiple reports come out about some of the internal issues with this organization, the leaks coming out, how they went from Super Bowl mode to survival. And that has raised some questions about the trust within the organization for Joe Douglas, Robert Saleh, and the rest of that coaching staff. What is your level of trust for, especially Douglas, a guy that's came in here to fix the offensive line is one of the biggest things, and it's gotten significantly worse. They now have to most likely pick up 3 starters, assuming you'll probably see Tomlinson move on or potential restructure. But 3 new starters, 2 tackles. What is your level of trust for Douglas and Saleh to get this thing turned around?
It's a fair question, obviously. The Athletic report came out. Tony Pauline had his own version,
Yep.
the Sportskeeda report that came out, and it just has not been pretty. So, Jet fans, that's not something you're enjoying. Hell, well, let me open up the Sunday paper. What the,
Yeah.
dysfunction and this garbage and this crap. So, it doesn't paint them in a light, but I will say the majority of it, I think, confirmed what a lot of us thought, that there was a lack of attention to detail from Nathaniel Hackett. That seemed apparent throughout the season. The Brees Hall comment, the Cowboys game where he refused to double team Micah Parsons, that was bizarre. So again, an attention to detail to that level on a game plan perspective, there seemed to be some nature there. And I'm just going to be honest, how many, if the Chiefs lost Patrick Mahomes, which is basically what the Jets lost, they lost their
Yep.
version of Patrick Mahomes, they wouldn't have made it to the Super Bowl. They would have been just as much of a Blaine Gabbert coming in there. Come on. They would have been 6 and, 6 and 11, 7 and 10, just like the Jets would have been. So I think there was clear dysfunction, and all the reporting is all good. I know Zach Rosenblatt personally. So yeah, the Tony Pauline, I've had him on my show before. So I'm not questioning the reporting element of it. That's all bad. But I think the real thing is they lost friggin' Aaron Rodgers, and it sucks. So now the one glimmer that I take out of it, I'm an optimistic guy, is that what I think the Aaron Rodgers injury really put the Jets in a position, it exposed their flaws, because I think we knew a little bit about the offensive line because of Hard Knocks and some of the Jets team reporting on a day-to-day basis. We're like, this offensive line's kind of questionable. Like, we knew a little bit of that, but I think it exposed like Hackett and his play calling, from a week-to-week basis. It exposed some of the deficiencies, like wide receiver. I think a lot of Jet fans saw going into the year, ooh, this unit's pretty good. Then, whoa, it clearly isn't. So in a weird way, with Aaron Rodgers being removed from the puzzle, you're like, wow, Aaron Rodgers, in theory, we didn't get to see it this past season, but a really good quarterback, mass deficiency is on the team. Like, even though the offensive line was horrible last year, Aaron Rodgers on that unit for the full season would have made them better, because he can make adjustments. He can make protection calls. He can get the ball out quick. He's seen a million defenses. He's forgotten more about football than Zach Wilson will ever know. So, like, there is just a difference there of being, and that would have been better by virtue, by default, if everything stayed the same. So the fact that they're actually going to improve, they've got the 10th overall pick, they're going to create some cap to make some things happen. Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback at the beginning of the offseason, which I think is an important piece to the puzzle, because he will be able to help recruit and bring some other pieces. And I think all of that is going to be very important. So to circle all the way back to your initial question, like my concern and things of this nature, I'd be concerned if Joe Douglas was heading into year 2. I'd be concerned about the long-term diagnosis, like, oh boy, things are looking a little rocky, the state of the front office and this and the leaks and the things of that nature. We're at the end of the rope. The executioner is sharpening the guillotine. He's like, yeah, this is the right gleam to it. So I have zero concern about the long-term future, because it's about the right now. The only year I know right now is 2024. If you say 2025, I'm like, what year even is that? I don't even know what that is. I am so singularly focused, and the blinders are on, and I think they are on for the people in that Jets building. 2024 season is the only thing that matters. Now, that could be dangerous, because like the Jets could overpay for Devontae Adams. If I was just talking about this on another show, that if the Jets swing and miss, they can't get a Calvin Ridley or Mike Evans or a T. Higgins or whatever, that they're like, well, we need somebody. And then they call the Raiders back and give them some sort of Godfather offer. Because to be honest, Joe Douglas is fired at the end of this year if they suck anyway. So why does he care if he gives up future assets? Now, that's not how he would be thinking in 2019 when he got the job in the first place. But right now, future picks don't matter. He may not even be there to make those picks. So I think there's going to be an aggression from this unit and things of that nature where it is clear as day. If they fail, they're all fired. And then these leaks and everything won't matter anymore, quite frankly, because they'll all be gone and you're starting fresh. So a brand new foundation will be laid where the Jets' house used to be. That's why I have no concerns about that, with all due respect. To be honest, I think it's all about this year, and the pressure will be on, and people operate differently. An animal, when it's put in a corner, when it's a caged animal's in the corner, it's going to do anything and everything in its power to fight out of the situation, and that's what I fully expect for Joe Douglas. So some of the leaks and stuff, while it's not pretty and it's not something I would show to my mama or put on the fridge at home, that's something that I'm comfortable with, because I believe that ultimately the proof will be in the pudding. This is a results-oriented business. If they win, all of that crap goes away. They continue to lose, that's going to be on the front page of the papers.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point about Douglas only worrying about this season. And if it was a year two, trying to build that foundation, build for the future, not really be all in. And the mindset I'm kind of having too with all this to remain positive is it can't get any worse. Like 13 different offensive line combination, only 22 touchdown scores. That is an awful ratio. It can't get any worse. It can only get better. And they still found a way to win 7 games. And that, it wasn't like they went all these things. You're probably thinking, oh, they went 4-13. And they still found a way to win 7 games, didn't finish in last. So it wasn't a complete dumpster fire, although it certainly felt like it with the Rodgers injury. So going back here to the offensive line for a second, of course, they have the 10th overall pick. There are some free agent potential trade options. What are some of your main targets? Fuaga is a name that I think a lot of people are really impressed with, especially with the Senior Bowl. Guys like J.C. Latham, and then even through free agency in the open market, maybe a Morgan Moses gets cut from Baltimore. He comes back here, which was one of Douglas's best moves, and it quickly became his worst move by not bringing him back. And even a guy like a Tyron Smith from Dallas or a George Fant, somebody like that. What are some of your targets through the draft? And then, of course, free agency and maybe even trade.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start off with an unpopular opinion. I fully expect Laken Tomlinson back at left guard. And I know that's going to, be like, whoa, what, why, who, what, where, how. I don't think he's coming at his number. I think the Jets are going to have an honest conversation with him that it's going to have to be a pay cut situation. And I think Laken will take that, because this is what every player does that gets they get the Grim Reaper meeting where the people say, hey, we want you to take a pay cut. What the player does is go to his agent and say, what could I get on the open market? And then they make up a number because they don't truly know. So like, the line is here, and the Jets are willing to pay me here. Okay, because here it is. If the Jets move down, they could save $8 million in cap space. Ooh, that's good. Oh wait, if they cut him, they lose $10 million in dead cap. Oh, that's not great. Okay, if we let's say they cut it in half in terms of the savings. He's set to count $18 million against cap. Let's say they make it $9 million or something. $9 million is probably a lot more than Laken's going to get on the open market for this season. So he'd be willing to do it, and he can become a free agent. And if he balls out, he's going to get paid a lot of money next offseason. So to me, I think Laken's staying. And I know that's going to make a lot of people angry, but he's an NFL Ironman. He's whatever it is. It's like 100-something games in a row. He hasn't missed a game since he was traded to the San Francisco 49ers. He missed that first week 1 game because he was traded in late August, so he wasn't there in time to make that first game. But besides that, from that game onward, with his days for the 49ers and then signing with the Jets, he has started every single game. For a unit, you brought the stat up, 13 different combinations in 17 games last year. Give me the guy who's there. And I believe strongly that if you improve the left tackle play around him and the center play with consistency, hopefully that's Joe Tippmann, that his bar will rise. High tide rises all boats. So if better players around him, he will play better. It's the same thing we had about Connor McGovern. In the middle of his career, everyone's like, boy, he kind of sucks. But the play around him sucked. All of a sudden, you raise the ability around him. He played much better. Coincidence? I think not. No. The play around him increasing helps him. So long story short, I think the Jets, to your point, have 2 needs minimum on the line. That's left tackle, right tackle. You got to figure that out. I think Joe Tippmann's going to be there at center. I have Laken at left guard. And again, ABT has the capability of being your tackle option or guard option. Me, I prefer guard. But that puts a lot of pressure because the draft, from what I've heard from draft people, is Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt are the 2 left tackles in this class. And basically everyone else are a bunch of right tackles of the notable names, which means if those 2 left tackles are off the board by 10 and you didn't fill left tackle before you get to the draft, are you asking AVT to jump to left tackle? That puts you in some compromising situation. So personally, go to your question, targets. Tyron Smith, I love. I want Tyron Smith. I'll give credit to Connor Rogers because he's the one who made this comp. But the Alan Faneca of bringing a guy in, he was 1 year younger than Tyron Smith was at the time of his signing to the Jets. He was 32. Tyron Smith is 33. But the same mentality is there. You bring in a guy for a year or two. Again, it's not about the long term. Hopefully they find that as well, but it is about right now. And there's no better left tackle you can get in the NFL for the right now than Tyron Smith. He's a future Pro Football Hall of Famer. He's going to be a first ballot Pro Football Hall of Famer. And sure, he's missed a bunch of games. He's averages about 11 or 12 starts a season, but he hasn't missed more than that. So it's not like he's having these devastating injuries where he's playing 4, 5, 6 games. He's playing about 12 games every year. And that's better than some of these other offensive lineman issues that we've had. People are unfairly comparing him to Dwayne Brown. Dwayne Brown is 38. Okay. Old Tyron Smith is 33. That's a 5-year age gap. That's massive. So I hate people that just are generalizing that, so I would be chasing Tyron Smith. There's a chance he can make the free agency. People ask, why would the Dallas Cowboys let him go? Well, they got a lot of people to pay. CeeDee Lamb's got to get paid. All these things have to happen. So I believe Tyron makes it to the open market. The Jets make the Alan Faneca compelling package offer to Tyron Smith. Let's go chase a ring. You're our left tackle. You're a blindside protector for future Hall of Famer Aaron Rodgers. You bring him in, you solve left tackle. If you solve left tackle, your doors open. The draft, you mentioned guys like Fuaga or Tyler Guyton or what have you. If you're the Jets at 10, you could trade back from 10 to still get Fuaga, Guyton, one of those, J.C. Latham. You could get one of those second or third tackles because they're all going to be right tackles. The left tackles are the ones that are going to go high. Alt and Fashanu are probably going to be top 15 picks. That's probably where they're going to go. And if the Jets prefer, again, Fashanu to one of them, then they could just stick with that. But in my scenario here, you grab Tyron Smith, you trade back 15, 18, 20, grab whoever's left on the board if you evaluate them kind of the same, Fuaga, Latham, whoever, and then all of a sudden you have your tackle tandem there. On the left side, you can have Tyron Smith. On the right side, you can have insert that second level tackle from the first round, and then you're in a really compelling position. Plus, you'll get an extra second round pick or whatever additional compensation you can get on that offensive line. So I think that's how you have to build this thing, quite frankly. You have to be realistic. There's only so much assets, so much money that's available that you have to build this unit with. I would try to fill as much in free agency as possible. That opens the doors by the time we get to the 2024 NFL draft to fix this thing. So I want Joe Tippmann at center. I want to keep him there. I want to keep AVT at guard. I don't want to be moving these guys around. I've heard all the people say, you could put Tippmann at guard. You could put, AVT at tackle. Let's just keep these guys where they are and let's fill the holes around them. Let's stop being herky-jerky and throwing all these people around. So I think that's an important piece to the puzzle for me. But offensive line targets, I'd love Tyron Smith. That's compelling to me. You could chase one of the high-level guards. I've heard Robert Hunt names thrown out there, or Dotson, and then that, I guess, would be the AVT to tackle conversation. But personally, I want to attempt to fill the hole on the blind side. That opens up the doors. Getting a really good right tackle, that's good because you have to fill multiple spots, but that puts the pressure like last year, the Broderick Jones thing, where the Steelers jumped in front of the Jets to take Broderick Jones. If the Jets go into the draft and they don't have a left tackle, everyone and their grandma is going to know exactly what the Jets are going to do, and that's dangerous because, like the Bears, they have 2 first-round picks. They're at 9, and if anyone calls up, we'll move up Farello, they're like, sure, we'll take extra picks, and then the Jets get effed again. So that's a part that could scare me a little bit if they go in with the left tackle hole. If you go with the right tackle hole, you still have the AVT trapdoor you can pull.
Yeah, definitely. And I totally agree with your point too. Going back to the Tyron Smith stuff. I mean, the guy's 8-time Pro Bowl or 2-time first team All Pro, 3-time second team All Pro. He's been a monster since he entered the league, obviously in 2011. And the Dwayne Brown stuff just doesn't add up. You also have to put into account Dwayne Brown was coming off of shoulder surgery at his age into this season. Tyron Smith, that's not the case. So completely different players. And I mean, Tyron Smith's also just his overall play is so much better than Dwayne Brown on a week in and week out basis. Just a potential hypothetical scenario here. Sure. And we'll get into receivers and a little bit of other stuff here before we close things out.
Yeah.
Let's say the Jets go out and get Tyron Smith and maybe potentially move AVT, let's say, to right tackle. You hold on to Lincoln. You got Tippmann at center. You mentioned maybe Hunt, one of your other guards.
Sure.
Could you see a world where they don't draft any tackle in the first round, and then that would open up the door for them to go out and maybe take a Roma Dunze if he falls there at 10, a Malik Neighbors, a Keon Coleman, a Troy Franklin, somebody like that? There's a loaded receiver class. Could you see that being a realistic scenario?
Of course, yeah. I mean, I just tweeted it out on Sunday morning. It was from PFF Steve. He was talking with Ethan Greenberg down at the Senior Bowl, and he said basically the question the Jets were posing. They posed the same question to all these draft analysts, and then they're putting them together in these video packages. And the theme of this video package they put out is if a player that you have graded the same at offensive tackle and wide receiver both on the board at 10, what would you do to all these draft analysts? Jordan Reed, Matt Miller, PFF Steve, Connor Rogers, all these guys. And his take was, well, you got to take a tackle because, like, at this moment in time, as this guy's being interviewed back at the Senior Bowl, they have a hole at left tackle, they have a hole at right tackle. Jesus, yeah. Well, you got to fill the offensive tackle thing. But he said, if you stitch it together, was his terminology, right? Throw some sort of offensive line together, which opens up the BPA. All of a sudden, the world opens. Brock Bowers is on the table for the New York Jets. I know that's going to piss some people off, but that's on the board. One of those top receivers. Dane Brugler of the Athletics said if one of the top three are there in any no particular order, Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, or Malik Neighbors is on the board at 10, he would pick that even over the offensive tackles, is Dane Brugler's opinion, because of how special those guys are. So 1,000% all that's available. Hell, I'm going to be honest, it could even get more aggressive than that. If they fill the offensive line holes ahead of time in your hypothetical scenario, right? You have, like, let's say Tyron Smith at one of the spots, AVT or Carter Warner, whoever you interpret on the other side, and then you fill up the offensive line. Maybe you could even trade up if a Marvin Harrison Jr. slips to 4, 5, 6, or Neighbors, or however the Jets potentially have this receiver unit graded. You can move up and say, let's go get a piece right now. Let's get freaky and let's make something happen. So I don't think it's a slam dunk that it's offensive tackle, but I go back to the 2020 draft class. A player I loved in that class was CD Lamb, but I knew in every fiber of my being, as much as I loved CD Lamb and I thought he was going to be a superstar, I just knew the Jets were taking an offensive tackle. So I tried not to fall in love too much because I'm like, I'm not going to get disappointed on draft night. I know the Jets are going with offensive tackle as long as one of the top four were on the board. And that's exactly what happened. So you had Andrew Thomas, obviously, you had Jedrick Wills, you had Mekhi Becton and Tristan Wirfs. So those were the top four. If one of those top four were on the board, I knew 1,000% the Jets were going offensive tackle. But that was because of the prior situation heading into the draft. We knew what they needed. But if they were able to fill it ahead of time, that opens up possibilities. So right now, at this current moment, as of recording of this interview, they don't have answers at the most key positions on the offensive line. That seems to indicate that you would have to go offensive alignment. But I will say, Joe Douglas, at his end of season press conference, reiterated he is a BPA guy. Will McDonald last year, in his mind, was BPA. This year, again, if one of those receivers, Brock Bowers is a really interesting one because he's almost a consensus top 7 guy in this draft in terms of best players available. And if he's there at the Jets, does Joe Douglas view him similarly? Because that could be a wow in the draft, even if offensive linemen are on the board. Because if he is BPA, and Brock Bowers is there and he evaluates him in the same way, maybe they could surprise all of us and go in that direction. So yeah, it's not locked in that it's offensive tackle, especially pre-free agency and trades and creative ways to fill those holes. But yeah, I'd say it's leaning that way, but there's always the chance that things can get shaken up.
Yeah, and I like the potential mindset where you address those needs and then potentially trade up again for a Bowers or a Marvin Harrison, somebody that is just a true game breaker, and where you can have that type of luxury pick, take that BPA type guy. Mm-hmm. We've talked a little about receivers just then. It's got to be finding complement for Garrett Wilson as I think the second biggest need on this offensive side of the football. You know, you look at some of the potential free agents, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, all of them I think will probably remain, potentially tag. Michael Pittman's another guy. I really like Calvin Ridley, even Tyler Boyd from Cincinnati. Again, Devontae Adams, maybe a trade. What are some free agent wide receivers that you like? And then, of course, if the Jets do go out and maybe take a tackle in the first round, you're looking more rounds 3, round 4. I think it's a very deep receiver class. You've got guys like Ricky Pearsall, Johnny Wilson, Roman Wilson, Jamari Thrash, all these different guys, Malachi Corley. Who do you like from this late middle round class, and then some free agents as well to complement to Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, it's just so important. Garrett Wilson is Batman, and right now the Batcave is empty. He needs some help. The Justice League, he needs some homies. Where the hell is Robin? That's what Garrett Wilson is asking himself right now. Where is Robin? Where's even that Butler guy? Like, even he would be an improvement when you look at some of the other people that potentially could be around this guy. So he is seeking help, and the Jets need it. Now, some of those names you mentioned are interesting, like Tyler Boyd as a wide receiver 3. I like a lot. He's a non-sexy name. I know people would prefer a different Bengals wide receiver from that group, probably for the Jets and T. Higgins. But he's not as sexy, but he's just wildly effective coming out of Pitt. He's just been a solid floor guy the entire time. So that'd be a nice wide receiver 3 to have. My wide receiver 2, drooling and all that are much higher. I want to shoot for the stars. I want to get the best possible guy. You have Aaron friggin' Rodgers throwing around the football. Like, let's get Devontae Adams. I know everyone says it's Antonio Pierce and all these other things. That's off the table, out of the cards. I don't agree. I believe that it's going to come down to what you prefaced in the question. This is a game of tag. And who's getting tagged. And we're about to find that out over the next 2-3+ weeks here of the tag window starting and ending. Who is getting removed from the market? It doesn't seem like the Bucs are going to tag Mike Evans. It seems like that's leaning Antoine Winfield Jr. from what we're hearing. So Evans, in theory, would be set to hit the open market. And if he hits the open market, you can at least have a conversation and see if you can woo him. Stay on the East Coast. Just come north of the border, pal. Come on up from Florida and come to New York. T. Higgins, does he get tagged? All the Michael Pittman Jr., all these cats. Who gets tagged, who doesn't? And when you get the list of who doesn't, okay, now let's go attack mode. Let's go get one of these game changers. And it's a compelling argument, I think, personally. I get the tax thing, and that always gets brought up, but playing alongside Garrett Wilson, playing with a Hall of Fame quarterback, getting a bag of money, all of that to me is tantalizing for a potential receiver to come here to the Jets. And I think that changed the conversation. To me, I'm parking Allen Lazard in wide receiver 4, and I am looking to acquire 2 prominent pass catchers at wide receiver. That is my goal. That is my aspiration. And here's the thing. I think the first plan, because you don't want to give up trade assets if you don't have to. So I think your plan is to sift through free agency and find the right guy. So who makes it there? I think Mike Evans is going to reach into the open market, and he's a compelling guy. He's got numbers. He's a future Hall of Famer himself. He's a guy that I would try to pursue. T. Higgins would be fun because it balances best of both worlds. He's young, so he's got a very bright future. He could grow alongside Garrett Wilson. They could be, hopefully, this dynamic duo of what Chase and Higgins have been for a couple of years for many, many, many years to come. Does he reach the open market? That's going to be the big question on a lot of these guys. Now, I will say this. If the Jets miss out, right? So let's say the majority of these guys gets tagged and like a Calvin Ridley or even some of these other ancillary names, like they end up signing elsewhere or whatever. And the Jets, right? It's a game of musical chairs. There's only so many chairs, only so many wide receivers out there. And the music's playing. And then the Jets are like, geez, we just want to sit in the chair. And then the music stops. And the Jets look around and all the chairs are taken. They're like, son of a gun. I don't know if we could swear on the show, but son of a gun. Okay. And they're looking around. And then that's where I'm like, all right, let's go to the bat phone, break the glass, and we call the Raiders. We offer a Godfather offer for Devontae Adams. Because let's be honest here. I mentioned it earlier. Joe Douglas doesn't give a flying hoot about the future right now. Why would he? Tomorrow is not promised. You're Joe Douglas. Your ass could be fired. So why not offer 2025 picks? You probably don't want to offer picks in this draft. Again, 10 would be off the table for me. Even for Brandon Ayuk, that'd be off the table for me because you need help now. The picks in the future, sure, we want to get Froggy for future picks. You want to talk, let's do it. But the picks right now, within reason, like the 10th overall pick is off the table. Maybe you want to get into day 3, third round picks, or late day 2, early day 3 kind of picks, like third round and beyond. Okay, maybe we can talk. But that's what I would say, that Devontae Adams is not off the table because desperate animals in the corner do crazy things. And if the Jets miss out on everybody, they can't just be like, well, I guess we'll have Allen Lazard. I'm sure he'll be better with Aaron Rodgers. You can't say that. So I think they'll make an aggressive pitch for Devontae anyway, but I think they'll make it even, like, let's say at the beginning of the offseason, again, the new league year doesn't start till March, but they make a call to the Raiders. Hey, Devontae Adams, so go kick rocks, pal. Boop, hang up on you. You're like, geez. And then you go out in the free agent market, you look at all this stuff. Like I said, the music runs out. You're like, oh, shoot. Call the Raiders back. Hey, before you hang up, here's this offer. Blank check across the table. Like, zoinks? What? Oh, okay, let's talk. Because everyone is going to say, why would the Raiders say, yeah, sure, he's available? Then all of a sudden, the trade conversation changes. If I go to a pawn shop, right, I don't want to take the first offer. Screw your first offer. It's this number. And then we start the negotiating process. So I don't think Devontae's off the table, but he's a guy I would pursue. Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., Calvin Ridley, you mentioned, is a guy you like. I like him a lot too. He's probably going to be pretty expensive, but The Jets need to get a compelling wide receiver too, and then a lower name, like I said, a Tyler Boyd is interesting. Again, I'm looking for probably a high floor guy as that wide receiver 3, whatever that potentially looks like on the wide receiver market. The name I'm about to say is not a high floor guy, but he would be an intriguing name if you balance him with a really intriguing number 2. Odell Beckham Jr. If the Jets were
Yeah.
so aggressive pursuing him last year, why wouldn't they try again? But again, I would be disappointed if the Jets came out of this offseason and Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 1 and OBJ was wide receiver 2. I would feel a little, oh boy, that's kind of dangerous. But
Mhm.
OBJ wide receiver 3, okay, and then wide receiver 2 is, like I said, is Devontae or T Higgins or Evans or Pittman. You're like, oh, okay, that overall group is pretty spicy. That is intriguing. So that's probably it. And to your point, again, just ending real quick on the draft stuff. A Roman Wilson would be intriguing out of Michigan. How far does a guy like that fall? That would be kind of intriguing to me if they're going to go to that market. But I think Aaron Rodgers is going to prefer, a veteran guy. I think that's what he's going to prefer. Now, of course, there's exceptions to all rules. Is Marvin Harrison slipping in the first round a little bit and the Jets get aggressive trade up? Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sure he'd love to throw the ball to Marvin Harrison freaking Jr.,
Yeah.
baby. But I think the number one goal is veteran, and then you're going to try to do some complementary stuff. The overall draft philosophy, offense, offense, offense. Give me offensive linemen, give me offensive tackles, give me offensive guards, give me wide receivers, tight end maybe, backup quarterback for the developmental of the future. I hope all the draft picks are on offense. I know there's a couple of spots, safety, you could get a long range guy to develop or what have you, but that would be my plan for the New York Jets.
Yeah, totally great. It's all about that all-in mindset, like you were talking about earlier. Not worrying about next year, worrying about now. And the whole Devontae Adams thing, like you mentioned, I agree with you where, like, I understand the whole Antonio Pierce stuff, but at the end of the day, who's going to be his quarterback? I think that's a lot of
That's
what it
it
is.
right
Devontae
there.
Adams.
You just hit the nail on the head.
Yep.
That is the remaining question. Everyone's like, oh, he's there. Aiden
Yeah,
O'Connell? Are you
exactly.
freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
What is the quarterback answer? Like he has his offensive coordinator Luke Getzey back from the Packers. He has, Pierce, right? So he's all these guys, and that's all cool. But that's to me the remaining question of why I believe a trade can
Mhm.
happen. If they have, I'm making this up, Tom Brady, all of a sudden he comes, it's not happening. He comes out of retirement as a quarterback. I'm like, okay, maybe Devontae Adams thing is over. But until they get a proven guy, the ghost of Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden O'Connell, get the hell out of here. Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's why the dream remains alive to me. They have no answer at quarterback, and they're sitting outside the top 10. So it's not like they're guaranteed to get some sexy quarterback name. Maybe they'll make a massive trade up. I don't know. But right now, as currently constructed, if I'm Devontae, I'm looking at that room. I'm like, crappy Raiders quarterback situation.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Crappy quarterback Raiders situation or Aaron Rodgers. You hit the nail on the head. That's the belief. That's the faith.
Yeah, definitely. Maybe Zach Wilson will go join him in Vegas in quarterback competition with O'Connell. And
Yeah.
then he might request a trade at that point.
Yeah, that's
Um,
probably true.
yeah. So anyway, one more quick thing here before we close things out.
Sure.
Not much going on at the defensive end of the football other than Bryce Huff, which is why this defense has been so dominant. There's far more questions, obviously, on offense. The whole Bryce Huff situation, I think most people most likely see him going elsewhere, hitting the open market and signing somewhere else. What are your thoughts on that situation? And do you feel Will McDonald could take a year two Jermaine Johnson leap?
God, he better
Yeah.
because I mean, oh boy,
Yep.
they need him to, quite frankly. I tried to make the pitch. I've been saying since the end of the offseason, well, at the least you got to tag him because you could tag and
Yep.
trade him and make something happen. But I had Zach Rosenblatt of The Athletic on my show a couple days ago, and because so that was my mentality. You got to tag and trade him. That's just me,
Mhm.
fan speaking. I'm like, oh, you got to tag and trade him. You can't lose him
Yep.
for nothing. And then all the team insiders, Rich Samini, Zach Rosenblatt,
Mhm.
Brian Costello, and all of them that cover him for the New York Post, ESPN, Athletic, all these places said that ain't happening. Like that's their collective opinions. That ain't happening. So I brought one of them on the show. Like I said, Zach Rosenblatt. I'm like, okay, just sit back and listen to my idea for the tag and trade because I've heard reasons why you can't. Oh, you got to reserve all this money on the side for the player and do all this. And I'm like, okay, but listen to my pitch. Okay. Basically, here's my take. I believe the Jets should go to the NFL Combine. Joe Douglas. Again, in a perfect world, you keep Bryce Huff, obviously.
Yep.
Undrafted free agent, homegrown talent. 10 sacks last year. He did 10 sacks on a crappy Jets team. Imagine what he could have done with Aaron Rodgers and had leads and he's
Mhm.
chasing guys from that perspective. He could have had 15, 17 sacks for all I know. So again, I want to keep him. I want to make that the base of this,
Yep.
but it seems less and less likely that that's possible. So putting that aside, Again, number one, love to keep him, but doesn't sound like that's realistic. So, okay, put that on the side for a second. Tag and trade then is my next best thing. If I can't have him, then somebody's going to get him for something. And I say that Joe Douglas goes to the combine. All 32 NFL general managers are going to be there. You talk to all those GMs and you try to drum up a market for Bryce Huff. Who wants him? Okay, let's talk. And to be frank, anything would be, I'm not saying a 7th round pick, but anything in the 2nd or 3rd round range is better than nothing. Because if you let Bryce Huff go and you let him walk out the door and he signs a monster deal with somebody else, you have a chance at a 2025 3rd round comp. By the way, that helps you 0. You just got worse. Your best pass rusher, in theory, walked out of the door and you maybe get a future late day 2 pick. That's not great. If at a minimum you can even get the 3rd rounder this year, at least that helps. Okay, it sucks to lose Bryce Huff, but now we have a 3rd round pick to work with, either in trade or go get somebody else that can help. And like I said, the 3rd round comp pick in the future is only a maybe because, quite frankly, the Jets could spend more money, as we've hinted at, with all these different positional questions. And if they spend too much money, it will cancel out the Huff loss, and they get 0, zip and pip, nothing, zilch. And that scares the crap out of me. So, again, if I'm Joe Douglas, these conversations happen. I know the new league year doesn't start till March and no one talks about anything. Come on, wink, wink. We all know. They're all having chats. They're having conversations. So in theory, I'm saying Joe Douglas could set up the framework of a trade in Indianapolis. And then once he has a framework, hey, what would you guys give us? I'm making this up. A 3rd round pick? Okay. Hey, Falcons, another random ass team. You can talk to Bryce Huff and his representation, work out the contract extension, because that would be required to make a trade happen. So you talk contract, they figure it all out. The last day that you have to tag a player or not, the Jets tag him and you work out the trade and you minimize the time that he's on the tag. Because as soon as you place the tag on a player, you owe him that money. That money is off your cap. So that puts you in a compromising situation. But if you work out the trade ahead of time, you can slap it on him and move him very quickly. So it's only procedural that you don't have the tag on him too long, and you could get some level of compensation to help you now. Zach Rosenblatt didn't laugh, but he said that ain't happening. But at least he listened to my my package, my idea on the table. So again, I still say that's what I would do if I'm the New York Jets. So I believe that he should be tagged and traded. But based on everything I'm hearing from team people, publicly, privately, they tell me that the expectation at this point is Bryce Huff will walk out the door as an unrestricted free agent and sign some big deal with someone else. I'll give a little bit of a slice of love. The only glimmer of hope is Jason Fitzgerald. He runs over the cap. He predicted that the Jets will get a last-second deal in with Huff and keep him. I just don't know. While that sounds awesome, and I hope that's true, it doesn't make sense. If I'm Huff, why in God's green earth am I not testing the open market? Because, again, this is his chance to get paid. And maybe he gets paid and he never gets paid ever again. This may be his only chance to ever get paid. So, I've spoken with Bryce Huff. My vibe, he is testing the open market. So I'd be surprised by that, but maybe we could get a nice last-second Christmas gift that got lost in the mail and Santa delivered it late, and we're getting it here in late February, early March, and somehow Bryce Huff re-signs with the Jets. It just seems unlikely at this point.
Yeah, I would love to see him back, but I agree with you. I don't think it's going to happen, and he deserves. He mentioned at the post-game show or post-game interview against the Patriots how he's not going to take a home down discount. Rightfully so. He was one of the best pass rushers in the league last year, very underrated, and deserves an opportunity to go elsewhere and make big money. And it's obviously been a very big move for Joe Douglas picking him up in 2020 as a UDFA. So that'll do it for this. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can everybody find all your work?
Well, I appreciate it. It's been fun being in the trenches here on this phenomenal show. I love the setup. This is groovy, baby. It's simple. Boy Green 25 everywhere. That's the Facebook, the Twitter, the Instagram, and YouTube.com/BoyGreen25. That's where all the shows are. I do a daily live show every morning at 7:30, and then plus extra interviews like the Zach Rosenblatt interview. We should have Costello on soon. A couple players should be coming on here ahead of free agency. Jets players on the team. So I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of cool stuff you guys can check out. So again, live content every day and more content on top of that as well. So I really love doing this. This is my passion. I'm a diehard Jets fan and I get to cover them and get paid to do it, which is a lot of fun. So yes, this is the dream, baby. Love it.
Yep, definitely go check them out. Lots of daily content on the show. We'll have more content coming your way. Thank you again so much for coming on. And to all the viewers, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.